forthcoming attractions on my Patreon channel. Why is it useful to join Patreon? Please continue watching to find out more. Not every video that I make is public on YouTube. Quite a lot of these videos that I produce are for my patrons only. And also, I make a new video almost every day for my Patreon supporters, whereas at the moment, on YouTube, I'm only uploading about 3 times a week. And also, if you become a patron of my channel, in the $5 or above category, there are some extras. There is my Essential Guide to Miniature Steam ebook download. My How to Build a Model Steam Launch series is also for patrons only, as well as this series which is called How to Build a Model Steam Engine. It's currently up to part 35, it's a bit of a labour of love, I keep adding to it. Only part 1 is available to view public on YouTube. The final thing to say is once upon a time when I used to sell steam models, I put them on my website. Any models that I now sell are available to my patrons who subscribe on the $5 or above tier. Also, my Patreon supporters get a 10% discount. This video is just a trailer. There's a short amount of each video to show you what's coming up. Stay healthy, thanks for watching, and please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. The connecting rod blank is now in the four-jaw chuck, the holes have been drilled, and now you can see why I put a cross on the end of the piece of metal. It's to help me centralise it in the four-jaw chuck, because I need to drill a hole here with the centre drill. I didn't drill it quite deep enough, but it's not a problem. With a live centre, you can just use the hole in the end if you wish. Maybe not on large parts, but it's fine for this job. After drilling the centre hole, I removed the part from the chuck and applied lots of marking out blue to it, until it looked a bit like the monolith that they found in Utah, except mine's blue. I recorded this clip on the 26th of November 2020, so I hope all my American viewers had a happy Thanksgiving. Changing the form of this 5/8 by ½ inch bar took a long time, about 2 hours so far. As you can see, the 400 grit wet-to-dry sandpaper is really doing the job. The oil allows the sandpaper to cut much more freely. Oops, I am really sorry. A viewer told me off for this. This is actually called silicon carbide paper, but I'll refer to it as wet-to-dry sandpaper. In this clip, I'm using a piece of Scotch-Brite to further clean up the piece of metal. Once I stop the lathe, you can clearly see that this is starting to look like a mill engine connecting rod. The next episode will be nerve-wracking as I finish the part. It's an accumulator. The more work you do at it, the sadder it becomes if you make a mess of it later on. A trip to see John Mills in Newcastle. John's Double Boost YouTube channel is very popular, and I'm always impressed by his workmanship. The reason for the trip to Newcastle was not just to see John, it was to buy some model aeroplane engines from him. The weather was atrocious all day, it just rained and rained. But eventually I did arrive at his place, and here I'm in his workshop, and I couldn't help but notice the large Double Boost poster on the wall. I have a large main steam poster on the wall, just to remind me where I am. The first thing I saw when I went into the workshop were these two beautiful old engines. Although the one in the foreground is not really classified as an old engine because it's one that John built from scratch recently. John's about to hook his compressor up to run these on compressed air, so you'll see them in a moment. But before that, a bit of live audio from the camera. You hear my voice first, followed by John's. And yes, we can understand each other. It's almost like the one that you'd find in the middle of a small roundabout.
That's the sort of thing, but they used them, they were on a church organ that would run a compressor. That's the sort of thing that was used for.
I'm not going to talk over this bit, just listen to the beats of this engine. First of all, at normal speed. This is a great piece of kit, and look what powers it. My MIG welding is definitely getting better than it was, but for small model use I really think a TIG welder would be a good idea. I will think about that. John makes some very interesting things by using this plasma cutter to cut shapes out of steel. This is what was left when he cut out 2 Lancaster bomber shapes. This is one of 2 Mammoth steam engines that were kindly given to me by a man called Chris from a neighbouring village. This is what it was like when I got it. And this is what it looked like after an hour in my ultrasonic cleaner using some liquid called Allendale. With the help of an ultrasonic cleaner, this special liquid is supposed to remove oxidation, like rust for instance, which it did very well on an old rusty chuck that I put in it a while back. This Allendale liquid was not so good for this application. And a word of caution if anyone's thinking about putting their old Mamod in a similar situation. This liquid is corrosive and it really does do a good job in dissolving the metal that the flywheel's made from. Even though I've cleaned up the flywheel using some coarse emery cloth followed by Scotch-Brite, in the previous close-up clip you can see that it is still pitted. Most of the steel parts are still very rusty. I know, I'll put them in this plastic tub and use some Evapo-Rust. It says clearly on the bottle that it is super safe rust remover, biodegradable, non-toxic, non-corrosive, etc. So this should be okay, that's my thinking. In order to immerse the base plate, I emptied the entire contents of the bottle into the plastic tub. And 24 hours later, I had a look at it. Well, it seems to have worked. The yellow liquid is now rust-coloured, and the base plate of this Mamod engine is looking slightly less rusty. I have in my collection an original Mamod funnel, so I thought I may as well use it. And here I'm filling the boiler with water. I anticipate problems because not only has this boiler not been used for many years, but when it was in the ultrasonic cleaner, I'm sure some of the liquid must have got inside the boiler. And this will cause a phenomenon called priming. When the boiler is under pressure and the steam starts to come out of the pipe to the engine, along with it will be some water. Priming in model steam boilers is very common, particularly in a newly silver soldered copper boiler. It will often take 2 or 3 steamings for it to settle down. As the water level in the boiler started to drop as most of it was coming out of the chimney, the engine did run much better. And I just sat there watching the wheel go round. Happy memories from my early childhood. Welcome to How to Assemble Stuart Model Boilers. This is part 1, assembling the 501 type of boiler. Generally speaking, the 500 and 501 series assemble in pretty much the same way. It's the 504 boiler that's different. Here are a pair of cast metal plates for a 501 boiler. Brand new, never touched. At the moment I have quite a good collection of Stuart boilers, so I thought I'd show you them. Entry level is the 500 boiler, and as you can see it has 2 long water tubes, but the centre tube is a superheater. Above those 2 are 2 501 boilers, very similar, but they have more water tubes, and again the superheater pipe down the centre. The 504 boiler has a superheater tube down the middle, but it has more water tubes at each side. These are the old style water gauge fittings for a Stuart boiler, and they're really good. I wish they still made them with the inspection plugs in the end to clear any limescale, which does happen periodically. This is an experiment in removing a very serious dent in a small copper boiler barrel. Once the job is completed, I will raise the pressure to a very high level, just to show what happens. There are very small dents and marks in most of these boilers, but this one is especially bad. I've shown this in a previous episode. Heating the dented area of the boiler is called annealing, and this will soften the copper in the part marked with the cross. It is important to concentrate the heat in the damaged area and not on any of the joints. The good news is that the 500 series of Stuart boilers are brazed, and brazing melts at a higher temperature than silver solder. The temperature of the dented part needs to be raised to a dull red heat. If this was a silver soldered copper boiler, you would have to do something to keep the heat away from the joints. Here are 2 500 type boilers. The one nearest to the camera is the one I'm working on, and I silver soldered a new bush into the other one. They've both been in my acid bath for a day, and you're looking at them after I just rinsed off the acid. This is the boiler that I'm going to be working on in this episode, and this is the good side. 5 Stuart steam engines in the workshop. This video shows 5 Stuart model steam engines after some slight valve timing adjustments, all running at the same time on the bench using my multiple compressed air distribution unit. please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.